Now, live from KUSI, this is Good Business San Diego. Sponsored by Wilsey Asset Management.
Hi, I'm Roy Robertson. Welcome to Good Business San Diego, where we're talking about the topics that are important to you, your home, your family, your health, and your money. And the following segment is brought to you by Wilsey Asset Management. Now, you may have noticed that steak dinner at your favorite restaurant is costing you more these days. Brent Wilsey, president of Wilsey Asset Management, he noticed too, and he's here to tell you why the price of meat has been getting more expensive. And Brent, I understand these are like record highs.
Well, they are record highs. And one thing too I want to kind of talk about also is inflation. Inflation did come in at 2.4%. People say that's not true. You know, I go in the grocery store and everything's high and so forth. We've talked about this before. They don't understand that the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, covers like 80,000 items. Right. So that can include, like, beef is just a main category, but there's subcategories. You got hot dogs, you got hamburgers, you got prime rib, you got all these different ones there. So yeah, the price of beef over the last year is up 15%. But overall, there could be other ones that are lower. So when you're shopping, you got to understand what you're kind of looking for. So but let's talk about beef, because there is a problem with beef, and it's a shortage. And we know supply demand in anything is very important. Right, sure. Low supply, high demand is going to raise prices. And right now, we have a shortage of cattle, about 86.2 million heads of cattle across the country, which is very low, especially the peak back in the 70s. Was 130 million head of cattle. So we are way down. There we go. See,
look at all that space.
Yes,
there should be more cows out there, right? Yeah. So, but this is historically a very, very low number. And again, as you point out, can't keep up with the demand for it.
Can't. And this is the lowest number of head of cattle since 1951. Now think about that. You know, think about the 70s. I mean, we now have about, what, 344 million people in the country, right, but the lowest supply since 1951. So therefore, we have problems where we need about 188 million more head of cattle to break even to where we were back in when the population was lower. The big problem is we're just not producing as much cattle.
Yeah, so what are some of the factors behind that? I know that there's a number of different conditions. Climate, drought, ranching in general. Talk about those.
You mentioned the main one, which is the drought. I mean, in Texas, which has about 12.5 million head of cattle, the lack of rain for the last couple of years. And it takes about 2 years to get a calf to become a cow to become the beef. They're just not growing because when there's no rain, there's no grain. No grain, the farmers then have to go out and buy feed. Right. So when they buy feed, that's another cost they have to add into that. And also too, they'll probably cut back a little bit because to have a full cattle with the feed would take a lot. So they probably skimp a little bit on that. So your cows are maybe 150 pounds lighter than before because it's just not worth it for them to do that. It'd be too expensive to keep doing it. So the rain is a problem. We also have a thing, we used to get about 5% of the supply of meat from Mexico. Well, they had this thing called a screw worm, where this worm gets into the cows, that screws itself in there and destroys the meat. So that supply of 5% is gone. And then the other thing too is that, you know, ranching is very hard. I mean, it's hard work. I always say there's nobody that grows up and wants to be, you know, they say I want to be a doctor, an attorney, financial advisor, you know, something. No one ever says, oh, I want to be a rancher. Being a rancher is hard work. You're out there in the heat, the humidity, the dust, and they get paid about $25 an hour. They do get free room and board, but it's not a great profession where a lot of people want to go into it.
Yeah, so it's kind of a dying industry.
It's a dying industry, and ranchers are kind of really, it was generational. You had a ranch, passed down to your kids. Well, kids don't want it, so that, you know, it's not happening. And the ranchers are saying, gee, I got all this oil underneath the ground. I'll sell my ranch for millions of dollars and do nothing. Right. Some of those ranches are being sold to private people where they want to have a gaming place where they can do their own hunting personally. So the ranches, they're becoming less and less. So you got the rain, you got less ranches, less ranch hands. It's a problem that we need to fix.
Well, this doesn't seem a problem that's easily solved in that you've got millions of cows. The shortage affects millions of people. How do you even begin to overcome that? Yeah,
and that's the thing. There's nobody can really blame for that. It's not a political issue. It's the rain is the problem. So until we get more rain, if somebody can create rain, that would be great. But until we get that fixed, there's no way to do it. This is going to last probably 2 or 3 years. Yeah. So if you're a big beef eater, like you or not, you would care about it.
I'm a happy vegetarian. Thank you so much. But for everybody else, I know I'm only like 4% of the population. So, all right, Brent, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
You can find everything regarding Brent online at smartinvesting2000.com, and we'll be right back.